Thank you for coming out on the school night. This is the second town hall meeting for our potential historic district expansion. See a lot of familiar faces, some new faces. Thank you everybody for showing up. This is great. This is what we're trying to do is get the community together, get the community engaged, everybody discussing things that we think is important, things that we do not think is important. Personally, I think Sperryville history is important, even though I've only lived here 7 or so years. I really love architecture, I really love design. I think these buildings are worth saving, and so how do we incentivize people to save their structures? That's all this is about, really. So I think after the first meeting, for those of you who were not here, we did have some homework, and kind of show of hands who did their homework, who read about historic districts. Who learned, who educated themselves about what is a historic district, what isn't. I think there are more what isn't a historic district than there are what is a historic district, unfortunately. Sperryville already has a historic district. There are lots of homes in the historic district. Mrs. Brown, your home's in the historic district. My home's in the historic district. Fortunate enough to have that. So part of this is, how do we include more of Sperryville in the historic district? So tonight we have two presenters again. Maral, Kalbian, she's a historic architecture historian. She's well published. She's done 40 of these, maybe, around the state of Virginia, historic districts. She knows how important they are to preserving the integrity of a community. Next we have Aubrey Lindern.
Lindern. It's a long hard.
Sorry, Lindern. I was thinking of the chocolate.
Yeah, that's it. I've heard it all. It's been pronounced many different ways.
Aubrey is from the state. She works with the Department of Historic Resources in getting historic districts put together. I could go on and on about what historic districts are and are not. I think what we're trying to accomplish with the Sperryville Community Alliance in this initiative is to say, how do we protect these buildings? How do we record the history of Sperryville? How do we do it in a manner that is representative of everybody's voice, and in a manner that respects everybody's voice? And so tonight we're going to hear some more about what historic districts are and are not. A lot of new faces in the crowd, so I hope everybody listens. We're going to have a Q&A afterwards, but tonight is about listening, right? So we're going to listen to our presenters, and then we're going to ask questions. So, without further ado.
I'll start. Quick question. I'd like to kind of gauge who was here last time and who wasn't. So if you were here last time, raise your hand. And who was not in the previous meeting? Oh wow. Okay. So I'm going to gauge on what I will go over again. So I'll make it a little longer. So again, my name is Aubrey. I work for the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, which is the State Historic Preservation Office for Virginia. So it's basically our goal is to help list, document buildings through the National Register. We have many divisions, but the division I work for most is helping folks get individual listings, or individual buildings listed on the National Register, districts. We have in Virginia one of the most popular, one of the most successful National Register programs in the state. I think we're second or third to New York and maybe California. Obviously, a lot bigger states, so it makes sense. So it keeps us very busy, and I love one of my favorite parts of my job is during districts because it's a chance to really get to know the community history, document that history, and a way to encourage preservation of historic resources. So this, for you guys that weren't here before, this is being funded through what's called the ESHPF, which is the Emergency Supplemental Historic Preservation Fund grant. So back in 2018, Virginia was hit by Michael and Florence, two kind of storms, tropical storms, and the federal government decided to give some funds and to the historic preservation program, our office, and Rappahannock was the only county in has a historic district. It was listed back in the early 80s. A lot of stuff was listed back in the early 80s. It's great, you know, it's great early, get it done, get it listed, but a lot was left out then. So it's our goal first is to update that nomination, include additional history that has never been told as part of the nomination. It's probably been told around here for many generations. There's a lot that was left out, and that's where we need your help for those folks that know our history. We want your involvement in helping to improve that nomination, but we also want to expand the district out towards the river district, out here onto 11, because the community of Sperryville grew and changed, and that history became a lot more. There's a lot more history throughout the 20th century. So that's something we want to include and the expansion area. So I think the first step for you guys that weren't here before and for you guys that were here last time, the first step in doing that is to do a survey. And basically a survey, it's not, you know, we get accused about when we're out here doing these surveys of raising taxes or you're here to say, none of that. We're going to sit by the public right of way, survey a house or residence or building or outbuildings or agricultural buildings, and she'll Maral, who I'll introduce here in a bit. We'll just basically do an architectural description of the building, and again, from the public right of way, snap a picture from the public right of way. But if you're there and if you're interested, and she wants to talk to you, and if you want her to see the interior house, or if you have a really great mantle that is just gorgeous, I'm sure she would love to see it, because we are architectural historians, and that's kind of what we love that stuff. But if you also know history of your house or history of your neighborhood, she wants to hear that as well. So we encourage you to open up, and if you guys are going to be the piece of this and help us get through some of down to some of the history that we don't know. So the next, after the survey is done, we'll take that inventory. So they'll generate an inventory of all what we consider contributing or non-contributing buildings. So a contributing building is going to be a building that maintains integrity. It is within what we define as the period of significance of the district. That period of significance, right now, we've got it up until the 70s, early 70s, which is the 50-year cutoff date. That may change. We may find that it doesn't necessarily need to go up to the 70s. But more than likely, I think we have a chart from 63 that's going to be important. So we know at least over through to 63. Because that's, again, the story of the history of Sperryville is equally important as even the earliest history. So again, that survey will be done, an inventory is created. That inventory is also used to define boundaries, which right now our estimate, we've got a preliminary boundary set. Those could change based on the research that Maral does, the actual survey. So again, that's all kind of fluid. And that's, again, we'll need your help. Because you may know, well, you're missing a property over here, or, well, that property doesn't really contribute to the district. So if you're a non-contributing building, if you're built outside the period of significance, there's been a lot of changes. I like to say, we took somebody whose house was built in 1870, and we took that owner, plucked him from heaven and stuck him in front of the yard, and you would go, what is this place? Where the heck does this come from? So that's what we use as kind of a gauge. It's like, would they recognize that? Are there character kind of features left in the building? Is the form and mass still in place? So that's how it kind of determines the integrity. So again, so that's done. We've determined the inventory. The inventory, we're out doing research in the history of the community through various sources. She'll go over a little bit how she works as well and what she plans to do as far as research. But that inventory will go into the final nomination, National Register nomination form, which you may have seen, because again, Sperryville is a historic district. So that she'll submit that when she's done with that to me for review. And prior to, once I review it, I will basically have to present it to our joint historic resources board and the state review board. But prior to that, we have to have a public hearing. That's a more formal public hearing, which we'll get together again like this, and that will be a chance again for you to ask any final questions. All folks that are going to be in the new expansion district will be notified. because everybody's invited, anyway, you know. But in order, at that point, to kind of gauge how you're feeling about it, what, any other final questions you have, any other kind of concerns. You can object to the district, the folks within the expansion area can object with a certified letter sent to the HR, and that will be sent to me, and I can forward it to our folks in Richmond. But again, those are only the folks within the expansion area that need to object. And in order to, there's potential that they can stop the project if more than 51% of folks object. So, then again, you'll get to know this. This is probably something we can put up on the alliance pages, kind of regulatory kind of things that we have to deal with. Once I take it to the board meeting, if the vote boards, we have again the Historic Resources Board, which is appointed by our governor, and our State York Board, which is appointed by our director. They'll come together. If they agree that it is eligible, then it'll be immediately listed on the Virginia Landmarks Register. And once they do that, they'll go on our website. If they listen it off to the Park Service, and the Park Service has 45 days to review it. If they agree with us, which they typically do, then it'll be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So that's kind of, there are a lot of misconceptions about the National Register of Historic Places. It is an honorary designation. Means I like to say, you can list your house one day or list a district one day, and you can tear down the whole district the next day. There's nothing that can stop you. Nothing. So it does not prevent private property from renovating or doing anything you want to the house. Again, if you want to demolish it the next day, you can't. We hope you don't. But you can't. It does not require you to renovate or keep up or do anything. You can do anything you want. It does not require you to open up the property to anybody. You're not a museum. We're not expecting you to ever be a museum. If you want to be, you can do that, sure. But you're not Monticello, you're not, one of our colonial birds or something like that. So it does not restrict private property's use. So if you live there and you want to make it a bar, you can, or anything else you want to do. Again, you have no say. And it does not automatically preserve a property. So a lot of people are astonished at that, because I get more calls at my office saying, but it's in the National Register, how can they demolish it? It's an honorary designation, and there's nothing that we can do. It is totally different than a local district. A local district is a zoning issue, and it's a local issue, to be determined by your local government and the citizens that live there. Cut and dry. That is, there is no truth to that we can take, you can keep your property. Again, it is a common thing I hear everywhere I go, but it is completely false. And again, it does not require local government regulations. Again, that is something that most local regulations that I hear come at the local level, at the residence level. The residents go to the government and say, we want to protect our community, our neighborhood. We want to preserve it. And that's them going to their government saying they want an extra level of protection. Has nothing to do with us. The only thing that if we have two major benefits through our office, we can do easement, or, and this is again, your choice as a person, contributing utility within a district. Your choice. If you choose to take an easement or a tax credit, then we're good as a carrot stick thing. So you're going to take a benefit from us, but you have to be able to rehab it, maintain the integrity of your property. So we're not going to let you have a two-story house, and it's former mass murder, give you a tax credit to put 3 more stories. It's, again, kind of goes against the whole preservation. But, so that there are just some common misconceptions that, again, are out there that I'd like to try to curb. So from this point, what we're going to do is, again, gauge from tonight's meeting how people are feeling, some questions. Maral will do her thing, she'll go out and survey. She's excited about that. It's one of the funnest part of our job is we really get out there and look at some great architecture and learn a lot about some great history about communities all over Virginia. And then from that point, she will start crafting that inventory. That inventory will go into nomination. Nomination will come to me. I'll review it, and we'll take it through to the board meeting. Hopefully there's really no deadline, so at this point, there is a deadline. All right, there is a deadline. We'd like to do it before I retire. I'd love to see this retire, but and then after my, the guy who manages the grant, would like to see it too. But no, there is, usually about a year. I would say a year we'd like to see it probably wrapped up. And I'm sure you guys, and again, we want this to be a community effort. And we want your input, because again, we're not from here. We want to learn from you. We love history. I do, like I said, I have, my grandparents used to be in the antique mall. The antique mall there down at the River District, and that was a very long time ago now. 80s. So I do, I've been coming to Sperryville for a very long time, so I'm equally excited to read the findings that Maral has and the contributions that you guys took over. So I'm looking forward to that. And I look forward to working with you in this process. I'll turn it over to Maral and let her kind of go over some of what she's going to be doing.
Okay. So I'm Maral, and I'm an architectural historian. I live over in Clark County, Virginia, about an hour away. And I've been a consultant doing historic preservation for about 38 years. And I'm a lot younger than that. Anyway, and I don't know if you have lots of questions, because it is very confusing. Historic district, you hear that and you immediately assume, oh, I'm not going to be able to paint my house a certain color or whatever. And that is the problem, because local historic districts are called local historic districts. And National Register historic districts are called National Register historic districts. And they have the term historic district in common. So when you hear historic district, people very often get confused, because it is confusing. I've been lobbying for years to change the name to something, but I can't think of anything sort of clever enough. But it is, this process is, if you look at it from an academic perspective, which is what I look at these projects as, that I'm going to a place to document the exterior of buildings and somehow tell the story using those buildings of the community. So telling the story of Sperryville with what survives here today. And the problem is that in 1982, the architectural survey and the National Register nomination that was completed was not very inclusive and thorough. Because back then, the standards, that was sort of the beginning years of historic preservation. And there was a push to identify important places in Virginia and get them listed on the National Register so they can have this honorary recognition. But if you compare historic district or individual nominations that are written today compared to what was acceptable back in the 80s, it's a world of difference. Like, I was looking through the one, that was done in 82, 83. Statements are made. There aren't a lot of footnotes, which drives me crazy, because it's like, where did you get that information? Now it's a much more academic, or at least that's how I do my nominations. And so what it gives you is a better history of the place. I'm not saying I'm going to write the end-all history of Sperryville. There are people, Judy, who are going to do that, who are historians. But I'm going to take, it's like you take the buildings that exist and say, how do they still tell the story of this community's growth and development? So it's time to include African American history. It's time to include industrial history. It's time to include the influence of the automobile on this community, which was huge. It's time to include the influence of the park on this community in the sense of the types of resources that were built. And unfortunately, that was not captured in the 1982-83 nomination. So I want to try to, bring all that into the narrative about Sperryville, because very often when people pass through or are curious about an area, and they, these days Google something, they come up with these National Register nominations. So I see it a lot as sort of the first line of defense for getting a good history out there, and that people can read and understand and better appreciate your community when they come to visit it. And also, as you live here, you know, and people move in, to have something, to have a better understanding of, you know, wow, this is how this community grew and developed and changed. So the nomination is to take that information and make a case for why all these buildings that are in this area, and in your letters you got the maps of the proposed boundary expansion. That's probably going to be tweaked. I was, you know, just out today driving after having been to the Rappahannock Historical Society and talking to Judy and looking at things, looking at maps, and you know, already I'm seeing some places we want to include some things that are significant. And so I'm gonna be out there documenting, looking, you know, if a building has, as you were saying, I've never heard that you pluck a dead person up and
Sorry.
learn that school. I don't know what school you went. They can teach us that.
You're the one, yeah.
Anyway, but no, if it's unrecognized as a historic building, then it would probably be a non-contributing building. But this is a fun kind of project. It's an opportunity to get more of the story of Sperryville written, and you know, get an official recognition by the Virginia Department of Historic Resources and the National Register. And again, purely honorific, nothing's going to change that way. The thing is, it's going to include, again, more of the history of Sperryville in a document that, you know, hopefully you all will enjoy reading. So, when and if I move forward with this project, which I hope will happen soon, because I like to do my field work when there are no leaves on the trees. You know, old buildings have lots of old trees around them, and there's really no point taking pictures when you can't see the building. So I will be, you know, coming out in the next couple of weeks. I'll let you know I'm coming. I might even dig out my old magnetic signs from the 1990s that I still have, and put them on my car so you know who's creeping along. I'm going to be staying on the public right-of-way, unless again you see me. I would love to come onto your property and answer any questions you may have. Like I said, I almost have 40 years of experience looking at historic architecture, so I do have, you know, can help answer some questions you may have. And then I will take that information and I do an architectural description, and then I go back to the Rappahannock Historical Society and try to give a little context about the building. Like, what was it originally? Now, I can't do a deed trace and a complete history on every building. That's not the purpose of this project, but I will do some digging and get some information. And there are a lot of you here who have amazing amount of information. Please drive around with me or meet with me, and I'll show you pictures. You can let me know what you know about these buildings, because this is an opportunity to capture that information. And especially if it's not written down somewhere, you know, once it's lost, that's it. And I think this should be hopefully once all the confusion about what it means happens, this should be a source of pride and a community thing that, and in projects that I work on, I'm transparent, you know, I want to be as involved as possible with the citizens, answer the questions, so that everyone is really behind it, and it's a wonderful way to bring the community together, because you're working for a common goal, which is just to tell a more complete history of your community. So, and I guess I have no deadline to finish. But trust me. So, assuming, you know, I finish the field work this winter, and then, you know, there's the paperwork part I have to constructed, and then a historical description, like, this is associated with this person, this was an old store, that kind of stuff. And then that becomes a narrative. There's a architectural narrative that talks about the development of architecture in the community. And that's always interesting because you get a better sense of how houses developed, and then also commercial buildings. There will be cemeteries, churches, schools. I mean, that's the thing, in such a small area, that a lot of different resources about a lot of different things that happen here, I mean, a lot of communities, all they have are houses and churches, and you have a lot more than that going on. And then there will be a historical context component, which is basically a history, a more complete history of the community. And then, and I hope to, I don't want to steal your thunder, but you're going to have some people in the community be on the committee that can review my work. Joy. No, I'm kidding. I'm always, I love good editing, so that, again, the people who live here know a lot about the history, and I do hope you won't keep it to yourselves, but you'll share it, because, again, here's an opportunity to get it written down, get it on the record. I will give you credit, for what you said, because everything I want documented where the information came from, so that in 100 years, people are going, where did this come from? They'll know. So I am happy to answer questions that you all may have, and I'm sure you do, because again, it's a little confusing.
And I'll say about Maral too, you're very lucky. Maral is probably one of the best in the state. And I know, did you hear that? Yeah. And we have a lot of great consultants from Virginia that are larger companies, but she is probably one of the best people in our state to do this. She's a joy to work with, and I think hopefully you'll find her to do it as well.
I enjoy what I do, and it would be an honor to work on this project, or else I wouldn't have been on it, so I think it's a really neat thing, and an opportunity for me to learn more about things that I don't really, fully understand, so.
Maral mentioned the working group because it's you guys who know the history of this village. We were talking and we thought it would be an incredibly valuable asset to ask community members, we were thinking 6 to 8, to kind of sit down with us and talk about what the history you know of the village or of buildings in particular. I actually think it's important, and I hope Maral appreciates it, is to review her writings and her documents so we can correct anything that might have gotten wrong. I think Carolyn has pointed out in the 1982 nomination there were wrong things. We want to make sure we get it right. So I think I've given it to most everybody, but we actually are planning to put together by the end of February a working group to provide some input.
That would be really helpful.
And I know Maral's already done some research on a number of buildings that she already has questions on. So maybe
Yeah,
we can
I
some of
do,
that.
and I was with Judy today at the Historical Association, and I was talking with Lillian Ayler, and who couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, because she has a meeting at the Scrabble School, another important historical thing. It's the night of historical events. But, I asked her sort of what she thought of this. And at first she had some, she had questions, like I'm sure a lot of you do. So, because again, it's very confusing. And I explained to her what's going on, and then I asked her, would you support something like this? And she said she would, and Judy, you were there. And I said, I want to write this down. So, quote, she told me, I support this project because it's going to capture a more complete history of the very important community of Sperryville and elevate our community in ways that will help us in the future. We will finally get the Black history of Sperryville included in the National Register. And it's an important part of the history. So is the industrial history, of what happened in the River District. Again, the things that were going on 211, the fruit markets, all these things were not included, but not all these things, but many of them the first time around. So I local government to pay for it. And it's just, I don't know how much storm damage was done here, but hopefully not too much, but you were fortunate enough to be identified as a community to get these funds, which, so you could get an updated history and documentation of your community at no cost to you. But wait, we'll throw in anyway, maybe now it's time for question and answer.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the houses is designated to be business district, but it was built in the 1930s, is that historical?
Yes. Yeah, at this point, things in the 70s, I joked about this last time, I was born in the 70s, I'm considered historic. So,
But you're not a building.
I'm not a building, but yeah, so that's, as long as it contributes to the history, the development of Sperryville, and along to 11, I think consider along to 11, that is an important expansion of the history of the community with, Maral mentioned the automobile, the park, the Ray Cabin is opening up, so you've got a lot more traffic going through here to get to the Ray. And just also the fruit markets and things like that. Those are all, there's a gas station, there's an old gas station. So again, those are new things to the 1940s. So those are important buildings. So tangible pieces of that history. So yeah.
And another thing that's interesting is, in the architectural narrative, it'll talk about how houses changed over time. So, you live in a 1930s house, I don't know if it's a bungalow or whatever, but, compared to earlier houses, like these Victorian houses, more in the center of town, there was a shift of what houses should, but what houses should be like. And so the nomination will talk about that shift, because, then you get, like, to post-World War II, you've got smaller houses, the craftsman style from the 1920s, you have a lot of them here, sort of low-lying, buildings, not these large two-story ornate, projecting bays and all that, which was more Victorian. So it's part of the evolution of domestic architecture. So that's how you fit in to the district, if that makes any sense. Just like early commercial buildings, there would be the discussion of the evolution of what commercial buildings went through, and industrial buildings, and, how commercial buildings, then with the advent of the automobile, how it changed.
The focus primarily in the discussion has been the potential expansion. Does your process include a review of buildings and stuff that were in the original district? We have a building that's in the original district. I'm not sure, frankly, how much is in the original designation about the building.
So,
Or are you gonna be looking primarily?
Yes, so it's an update and an expansion, because that information from 1982 is now, 50 years ago. Can't be 40, 30, 40. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. 40 years, that's still, so things have changed. People have, changed their houses. There are buildings that have been demolished. There have been new buildings built. So yes, it will include sort of redocumentation. And then there was a survey that was done by the Alex back in the 90s. So there is some updated information already, but this is just, it'll have the date of 2023 or 2030, since there's so many. That it'll have the date, and so we'll know this is what the community looked like at this period. So yes, they'll be updated.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Pete Gasper. I live on Apple Blossom Lane, part of the new proposed expansion area. So I've got 7 questions to ask, and that's partly because of what my first question is. My first question is why were the property owners of Apple Blossom Lane not notified of the December 13th meeting? We received nothing. I wasn't here, because I didn't know. Question number 2. Why were the property owners of Apple Blossom Lane not notified of the January 30th meeting, this meeting? Now, I've seen part of the mailing for that, the January 9th letter, and there's a lot of information in there. But if a neighbor had not given it to me, I would not have known. So I'm working in the dark. As an old Navy radio man, I'm after the BT. Da, diddy, da. You folks have already started, and we haven't even got there yet. Question number 3. And this is dealing with the Sperryville Community Alliance. What is the correct and current EIN for the Sperryville Community Alliance? If you take a look at your webpage, we've got some problems there. Question number 4. Exactly when was the name of the Sperryville Community Foundation changed to the Sperryville Community Alliance? Why have I not known about any of these things? I don't spend my whole day researching, because in a community, folks let each other know. Question number 5. Where can the latest Form 990s, those would be the IRS reports, for the Sperryville Community Alliance be found? Because I can't find them online. In 5013Cs, they should be. And I would like to find out where the Sperryville Community Alliance gets its money. $20,000 in grants and things like that. I looked at your report online, but that doesn't answer all the questions I have. And since one of the most forceful motivating forces in this initiative happens to be the SCA, I would like to know something about it. Some questions here, because in the January 9th letter it says, it does not, it does not, it does not. What is the supporting official documentation for the it does not statements? I'm skeptical of government. I've worked with the government for 56 years. My primary line of work was intelligence. I'm very skeptical of anything and everything that people say or they report. So I'm skeptical about letters that say it does not, but does not give me the source reference which substantiates that claim. Now this is a little bit more theoretical. Can the property owners of a particular lane, such as Apple Blossom Lane, say they don't want to be a part of the expansion district? Since all of the property owners, 100% of them, do not want to be a part of it, or at least based on what we know until we get answers to our questions, can we opt out? Does the state allow for that? Or the Commonwealth, I should say. And that is 7 questions. But I think you understand why I'm skeptical after I presented those things, because there's a lot going on around us. Now, some people say it's because of new people that come in the area and they start wanting to change things. I'm a new person. I came here in December of 2013. I don't want to change anything. Good. I bought my house as is. I live in a place as is. I'm happy to be with these folks in my community as is. I don't need somebody else coming in and changing things. Thank you very much for your time.
I can address the issue of why you didn't receive, because again, I know we're just discussing it, I know where you're located now. When this initially was done, I did the PIF, I did the original, kind of the estimate of the boundary. That lane was out, not included in that. So we went to the county, we got the notification, the addresses from the county. So that's probably why you guys were left out. I apologize, but that's why this is just the beginning of this process. So, yeah, yes, it really is, the preliminary form is preliminary. Just, we kind of look at it and see, because there's very well, could have been, I looked at it and said, this is not eligible, there is no expansion here. But we had to go through that step before we went down this long step of going through the application process, so that's why. You will get notified if determined that the area when Maral is doing her research, that it is historic, that it is an important part of the history of Sperryville, then you will get notified from there here on out, because it's required under state code. Same state code that allows for, that substantiates, like, when I say it does not do this, and it does not do that. That's from state code and National Historic Preservation Act. Nothing in it that does not, unless, again, you take a benefit from us. I'm not lying. I tell this, I've gone down this road with a lot of people, and I'm not lying. I got into this business to document historic resources and to document history of buildings. And that's what this is. Completely, that's it. Unless you choose to take a benefit. It is all on your, whether your personal property and you as a personal property owner, what you do from that day forward once this is listed. That is the truth. That's why we list districts all over the state, and most of them without any issues or any questions. All over the state, from the far southwest to the east coast, and up in northern Virginia. So that's what I can answer. I can't answer. I'll turn it over to you guys to talk about that.
Maybe we can send,
And we can
the
send-
link to the National Preservation Act and then the state code, so that you could see that.
That's what we need to see.
Yeah.
Is
And then maybe that's something that you
It's
could
another
propose.
citing sources.
Sure, yeah.
I'll get your email as well. Our EIN is on our webpage, our 1099, our,
Is that the EIN for the foundation or for the alliance?
so when it was incorporated, it was called the Sperryville Community Foundation. We did a DBA, which is a doing business as, change to the Sperryville Community Alliance. I can get you that paperwork, I think it's actually online. On our webpage, it's www.sperryvest.org.
Yes.
Our EIN number is actually on there. Our annual reports, which actually show all of our donations, all of our expenses are on there. And our 990 ends and 990s, as well as the 1023s are on the IRS website, and I'm happy to share that.
Where are they?
On the IRS website. I'm happy to share
I
all
have not been able to find that yet. Of course,
if
since
you feel like I can
noticed,
send you
I
a
only
copy.
started looking over the last 24, 36 hours.
I'm happy to share it. We're open with all these things, so I'm happy to give you the text one.
Number 7, on property owners.
Sorry, yes. Again, we have, once we do our research, if it is determined that's still an important part of the district, we cannot opt out. That is, again, in the enabling legislation and the state historic preservation code. It's just because we can't have donut holes. Now, if there's some way, if Maral looks at it and there's nothing that supports it them being in the district, then we will draw you out. But it doesn't make, we can't start cutting people out. If we did that, if we allowed folks within the middle of the district or in the middle of the expansion area, we'd get donut holes, and that is not allowed.
Well, I thank you for the answers to the questions. Hope I didn't offend anybody. Appreciate the answers. A question becomes, okay, decisions are made. We have input through meetings, but we have no representatives in this.
You can object.
We can object, but it isn't like we can vote. In other words, if the majority of the people in this room say yay verily, it's not a governmental organization, it's not a governmental vote, it's not like the county. But we're seeing a setup, I won't say it's a setup, but it's the way the system is, somebody makes a decision, we can object, but after that, where do we go from there?
I mean, it's set up in a manner that allows, again, 51% of folks object in the expansion area, then it won't go forward.
But they would have to literally sit down and write letters
Yeah,
rather than
do
going
certified
and
letters.
just voting. And so you would have to get everybody to say, okay, folks, please write your letter. We know you disagree, and you don't want it, but you're gonna have to get off your butt and write the letter. So that means that that 51%, even though they exist, might not ever show up.
Yeah, but then we've had that happen. We've had a couple of districts, very few. I mean, I think maybe in the time I've been in this business, I've had two. And the people, if they feel that strongly against it, they get off their butt and they write the letter. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, we're even newer. We moved here about 3 years ago. I think one thing that maybe is not, and perhaps because we're not at the first, we miss the implication aspect of this. So what I'm hearing a little bit now is a bit of, forgive me for putting it this way, but paranoia. Oh my gosh, what happens if I'm included in this historic district and I don't want to be in it? But what's not clear, and maybe you can help, explain this, is what are the implications of being in this historic district? You partially addressed that earlier by talking about, it doesn't require you, doesn't prevent you from adding an addition, it doesn't prevent you from destructing your house, it doesn't prevent you from whatever. So I do perceive, and forgive me for saying this, in this area there's a bit of paranoia that, like, against any change. Oh my God, what is going to happen to us if we make a change in something as though it's going to threaten our very existence or the reason that we moved here? And believe me, we moved here because we love this space. We love the fact that it has not a single stoplight. We love the countryside. We don't want subdivisions, okay? So please understand, I think we're all of the same mind in that respect, but that doesn't mean like you have to accept that some level of change or adaptation is required. And so, anyway, I'm wandering, but my point is, I think there's a bit of fear, which is maybe just out of unawareness of what are the implications of this designation. The second question I have is simply jurisdictionally or boundary-wise, what are the boundaries of the area of the top?
I'll start with that. That's still fluid. That's what's up at Maral. We'll start to hash out as she surveys. But right now, I think the kind of the preliminary, when I did the preliminary one, and again, I did it. I walked all over and just kind of looked at what made sense at the time, generally. And it was up to River Road, and then along 211 up until right before the firehouse, or here, sorry, I forgot where I was. And so just mainly those are the new, and then we're going to go out and probably capture the cemetery further out, but that's going to be discontinuous.
So 211 and Main Street, more or less.
Yes. So Main Street, and of course, mobile.
To this point here.
Sorry,
You're gonna go to this point here up to
a little bit before, yeah.
how far before it's kind of.
I think the house, like, that's category from here. I think that's where, again, I'm thinking it's like right there, a large two-story house. Yes, so that's probably, yeah, and then, yeah, the priest house, is that what you said? So the priest house, yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
You can't really tell on the map.
Again, that's all changed, yes. Well, let me ask, can I answer this first, another thing? The implications, I only see this as positive. We're not trying to come in here and change anything. We're coming in here to help you preserve and your community history in a way, looking at tangible resources that are still here that a lot of communities don't have any longer because they've been demolished. That's the whole premise of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, was a lot of stuff was being knocked down by urban renewal progress and then knocking down whole neighborhoods that were gone, and huge, nice landmark buildings in New York City and elsewhere. So they were being demolished and gone before we even knew that their history and how important they were. So that's what prompted that was the Historic Preservation Act. That's why we're here. That is what the goal of the National Register of Historic Places is. We have benefits, again, those benefits that the tax credit and the easement program, which is one of the strongest easement programs in the nation, because it runs with the deed. If you choose to take an easement on the property through our office, it protects your property. For the rest of it, well, unless it, by natural causes it goes down, it protects. So again, that's your choice. Your choice to take tax credit. Otherwise, there's nothing. There's nobody is going to tell you. And I think if you could go across the state of Virginia from far southwest to districts that have been listed, you could visit multiple districts every year, and those folks have not seen any of us come in and tell them, okay, you've got to do this, this, and this. Again, it's only the local districts. Remember, and Maral talked about this, that maybe there should be a change in what the naming of these things, because the local district is totally different. It is your choice as a citizen if you want to go that route through your local government. It has nothing to do with what I do. Does that? Yes.
So we have a printout or something that was given to us last time.
No, I think that was actually on the website.
But it
I made
says,
a copy of it from 2019. That
it
was
says
the first-
Sperryville Historic District 2019 Expansion Area, which we are in 2023.
Yeah. I think all COVID happens, so that's why it's like, we
Well,
didn't do
that's not
it.
my point. My point is, this has been in the works for how many years? And now we're at the point where you're already gonna start taking pictures of the property, right?
I hope to, yes.
Okay, no, it's a yes or no. You have already been approved to start taking pictures of properties. Yes?
I have been with the state hired to do the project. Whether I'm gonna start taking pictures of the properties or not.
So you
Has
have
yet to be
been hired
determined.
to start working on expanding the historic district of Rappahannock County.
After these meetings occur.
The spirit.
I'm sorry, it's very, yes.
Yes.
So you have been hired, this is already a done deal. I'm just telling you, this is already a done deal.
We have to start.
No, wait a minute. So, okay, so you just said you're gonna start going out. If I see you, welcome you, tell me about it. And then you said the process after you do that is gonna go to be approved. Then it's gonna go to a council, they're gonna review it. And then, if I don't wanna be a part of it, I have to send a certified letter saying I don't want to. Is that the process as you just said?
Yes.
So this is a done deal.
Yeah, but
This is a done deal.
so you feel that there will be enough people that will support?
No, what I'm saying is you have already started the process. At this point, as a homeowner, my only option is to wait for this to get whatever you guys come up with, and for me to send a certified letter saying I don't want to be a part of it. And if only 51% of people like me do it, will it actually not happen? So I'm not so much against the project. What I'm against is 5 years in, and it's already been decided, and I haven't been given a vote. They're giving me the idea that if 51% of us decide to vote against it, we still have a choice. That choice is off the table. At this point, your choice is to send a certified letter after the fact to be removed.
Because of no donut holes.
Yeah, but.
So I just want to point that out in case any of you here think that at this point we have a vote. Because you do not.
I think it's a fair, I think what they're raising is a fair point.
Yeah. I can't.
However, what I think is the problem is there's an information gap, okay, which is that it's not clear what the implications are. So there's a fear, if I can put it that way, discomfort with what, I don't want to sign up for something that I feel I'm being buffaloed into doing without understanding what the implications are. So the information gap is, what are the implications? What am I losing? What am I gaining? What is, based on what I've heard, and I'm ignorant, is there's not a lot of downside. There's some upside. have some doubts, and that's fair enough.
But again, you don't have a
It's-
choice at this point.
Yeah, the
You don't have a
problem is
choice.
the
Well,
expansion.
I'd like to
You
point
don't,
out
you
that
don't have a choice at this
you,
point.
can I say, you do, you could, ultimately, you could have a choice if enough folks.
After all this
But
process.
it could have happened anyway, the preliminary
It is
information.
gonna happen. We've already said this has already started. It's going to happen.
But the end result is the National Register nomination listed. It is not a sure thing at that point. So I don't, the process can happen whether it's a National Register nomination or not, because there are many reasons why consultants like Maral can go out and survey a district, where basically if there is something called the section 106 of the National Appropriation Act that says any federal funded project or permitted project requires that the federal government to go through and make sure that there is no impact to certain resources. So there would be a consultant hired by the feds to come out and survey.
I just wanna, if I'm, you two are not.
Yeah, I get it.
You've come in after the game.
And I just,
You know what I'm saying? You've come in after the game, and I respect your process and everything. What my problem is this started rolling
yeah.
way before you two should have ever been contacted. So I should probably, who's ever, who started this, and that's where this should have started.
So you're right, that we did get the approval to do this research. So we're gonna benefit from about $60,000 of free research on the history of Sperryville. It could be that we don't go to a historic district. And we actually did do the process because we could have never have started this discussion unless you fill out the paperwork. So in fact, we did fill out the paperwork, I don't exactly remember when we started it, but somebody had to get that ball rolling. So you're right, the process is running, we're lucky we're gonna get this research. It may just be for naught, at least we'll have the research. We may not go to a historic district, it depends on what you all and everybody else think. So I agree that the
Well, when you say
ball's running.
that's not we.
So it's the
You.
community.
You, a small portion.
Sort of, let's continue on and see what others have. Okay.
I think it's a fair point that there's some concerns about what this might mean and what the implications are for this. I absolutely understand that concern, but there's some concerns about what this might mean. Something I think that would be really helpful is my understanding, we've been a historic district since 1982. So for the folks that have houses and that have businesses in the current historic district, like if you could share what your experiences have been, there's places you could go to that this doesn't exist at all. We know this exists, so what can we learn? What have they experienced from it? What challenges have they had from it? So I think we have the data to know what this actually means from an implication perspective.
I saw you first, and then let's go to you. Can we start with you, or then?
We're the first house into the district on Water Street. And we've had no impact whatsoever. Frankly, I'm not sure I even really knew we were in a historic. But it's had if we've done any planning, any ideas, it hasn't had any impact. What I'm now thinking is, I have heard, when we were in the process of purchasing this property, that it was at one point a school in the district, or in the town. When I look at what the layout inside, it makes potential sense, because it doesn't make any sense as a residence. And so, now I'm like, I want to know more information. I mean,
It was a school and it just moved there.
Yeah.
It's where Shaw's was at. Where Shaw's service station is, your house was there, right?
well, I'm sorry, what?
That's where Shaw's service station is now. You right at the bridge, you right at the bridge, that house there was on the corner. It was where Mr. Arthur's house. Right. And they tape on it. You knew that. It is an unusual house inside. You can tell it's a school with the tall ceiling. But that house was at the corner of 211 and 522. And they moved it
I
down.
don't know, and that's the kind of thing where having this history done, for me, is like perfect. This is So that's a great opportunity.
But they're gonna do the architectural history.
They're gonna do,
Well, of the history, but there's nothing to say that if somebody wanted to, with your website, to go around and talk to people and add that to the website, as opposed to, and people can still get their houses individually designated as a historic house.
yeah, no, I'm not, I mean.
That helps us speak of big ones that add to town.
I'm interested, not,
Yes.
One house was never moved.
so I want to know more information.
And that's, well, let's go to you first. Okay,
That was really the first I knew about it. Very excited. Hello. Anyway, I was a lot more excited than when I discovered I qualified for senior discounts. But I was pretty happy about it, but I'm already in it. But I had no.
The little schoolhouse
Just
was
like,
moved up back
so
where the station is,
impact
back
is
there
pretty
in
much
where it is now. But the little
unless,
schoolhouse
like you
was
said,
moved up
you
back
opt in. If I decide that in your tax rate,
there.
then I'm stuck with that.
That's
In
what somebody,
perpetuity.
that's what somebody's thinking.
And I'm speaking very clearly,
This way.
so that you can hear me.
I think I'm the last one here.
But I know I'm done.
yes, thank you.
One was a magistrate's judge.
Yeah, I just need a clarification. When we talk about that 51%, according to the maps that I've been seeing, there are 4 separate areas that will be part of the expansion. Is it 51% of each one of the individual areas, or 51% which also includes the folks that are already in the historical district? So, they're happy with that. We might not be happy with that. We have to not come up with 51% from our area that's being one of those 4. We have to come up with 51% throughout the entire thing. And she said it's a done deal. It's called democracy. Yeah. Well, democracy in our own area. But they're making a bigger.
Yeah, it's just 51%, let me clarify that, let me clarify, it's only the folks that have the vote, are only the folks that are in the expansion area. The people within the district are already listed.
Okay, that's the part I wanted to know.
Yeah, so it's the entire expansion area, not broken down into groups, it's the entire expansion area, the population of the expansion area.
That's a different answer.
And if you own more than one property, you get one vote.
Do what now?
If you own one property, you vote with one property, one vote.
I have 4 properties, I allow 1 vote.
Yes. Yes. It would, yes.
Hi, I just had a couple of questions. Looking over the properties that are in this proposed
so if the LLC is owned, how's it set up, how's the ownership set up? I might have to ask you.
She's an individual on the LLC as on the property.
I believe if it's the LLC, that'll get a vote, but again, if it's an LLC and an owner, but I have to check with the,
I'm curious.
I'll have to check with the state attorney.
Okay, I'd like to know if the LLCs that have Sitar are the same name as an individual ownership or a joint ownership.
The same name, though?
Yeah.
Same owner, it's the same owner, it's one owner, one vote.
So my other question relates sort of to the funding of this program, which you all indicated is a very transparent and FEMA-funded program. And I did some research and it looks like about $5 million went into that fund as a result of the storms Michael and Florence in 2018. I went back and looked at those storms in Rappahannock County, and we had no damage in the local newspapers if you go back and look. And it said that the only thing from Hurricane Florence is that we had 5 or 6 inches of rain overnight, and maybe a few people got some water in their basement. And if you look at us on a map, Page County didn't get funding, Fauquier County didn't get funding, Warren County didn't get funding, Culpeper County didn't get funding. So how did we get added to the list of the 10 or 12 counties that qualify for that funding?
You have to check with FEMA. We're notified of that. What mine, yeah.
If I can jump in and
Yeah.
answer Supervisor's question, I think it was 2018 was the year of rain in Sperryville, right?
Yes, we had 9 feet of rain in county that year.
9 feet, what is that, 108 inches?
Wow.
That is a state record. That's a state record. So in 2018, when FEMA or the state identified areas that were available for funding for the 2018 flooding, you look at the map, and there's a lot of area around the coast. And there's one little dot in the middle of the state, and it's us. It's us. Because we got 108 inches of rain that year. My basement flooded 4 times. That's 4 water heaters and 4 well pressure tanks. Like, I was ecstatic that the state said, here's some money for everybody affected by the 2018 flooding, right? And by the way, this money can be earmarked for historic district designations. And so that was kind of the impetus, and that's where the money comes from. It's earmarked and it's being used accordingly.
It doesn't
And I think we can benefit from that.
FEMA gives this money to document, the idea is, this is an area that, was affected by bad weather, and they just want, in helping the community to document what you have in case in the future you lose.
Yeah, the National Register is a planning tool,
Well,
too.
that does answer kind of a follow-up question that I have, because FEMA is funding this, what does FEMA get out of it? Because they would pour $5 million into a program without getting something in return.
I don't think that, I don't.
FEMA did this, they did this in Clark County. We were the only county, sort of like Rappahannock, and I remember when I heard that Rappahannock got FEMA funding for this one, we were with the hurricane that happened back in 2015. And we got a lot of rain and some wind, but nothing seemed, like the Frederick County or Warren County didn't have experienced the same thing. And they didn't get the funding. Clark County was eligible for the funding. In that case, the locality, they were like, we're going to use the funding, and they used it to document things and actually do repairs on some buildings that they owned and whatever. But I don't know that FEMA got anything out of it because they're out of the loop.
Yeah.
They just identify these areas and give the money to the Department of Historic Resources that then says, okay, we've got this money, what are some projects that, should be
Maybe
done?
that's something we can afford.
There you go. That's another thing.
Any questions? Aubrey?
There's a stone wall on Water Street, you hold the wall of our houses. I'm trying to find out, who built the wall, when did they build it, who's responsibility to maintain
When was the wall built? It was after the flood of 29?
Yeah,
I've been there a long time.
Wall along the, inside the, Lindern Road. Through the river and.
You talking about what the Exxon station is?
One more question, any more questions? Yes, sir.
It had to be before, but.
She knows the answer.
Two more questions, yes, sir.
I just want to go back to the beginning, which is because there's a certain discomfort which has been expressed about the process. Okay? That is sort of one basket, if you want to put it. The other issue though is what are the implications? So if I'm worried about whether I am or I'm not incorporated into the historic, the expanded historic district, what do I get and what do I lose? Do I lose anything? What do I get? I think if you dumb it down, I'm sorry to be blunt, but if you kind of dumb it down to that level, maybe people will at least derive some level of clarity and understanding.
Let me just clarify, I don't need anything dumbed down to me. I
I
know, I'm just saying.
I don't mean it that way.
It did come across that
Put it
way.
that way. But my point is not, it's the process, yes. The process that this was started 5 years ago, or many years ago, and it's already done, that somebody, a group of people decided to go ahead and do this, and the 51% of the expanded area that's going to be affected by this, whether it's good or bad. But my point is my property, my decision, and that decision has been taken away from me. Because at this point, when this is all done, 51% of these people that are in this new expanded area have to send a certified letter. I'm not, if historic or non-historic, my problem is my choice was taken away. So that's my problem. It's not the implication.
It's the process.
It's the process, and the process has been done.
I want to make sure we're sensitive to everybody's time. I'm happy to sit down and talk with you. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time, and I appreciate everybody coming out. I'm happy to sit down and talk this over with you again in more detail, and make sure I understand fully your concern, but I think I'm missing something. And I owe you something anyway, so I'm happy to sit, Robert and I can sit back afterwards and kind of walk through some more things with you. I want to, Robin had one more
I
thing.
just had some input, just the fact that I've been in the historic district, no one's ever come. I've gotten more action about the grant, that $5 million, they drove up to my house one day and said, you're eligible for money. For being
Again,
flooded.
that's not the point.
I'm making, it's a big point, just hang in there, okay? But as for being in the historical district, nobody's ever, I think the only question I've ever gotten is from your husband, who looked at my sign and went, I'll be darned, I didn't know there was such a thing.
No, I did know, Robert. I said, you're already in a historic district.
Yeah.
You shouldn't complain about this. If I was in a historic district, I wouldn't say a word. I want all the money for
My
myself.
thing is being declared a historic district.
It's the change.
I don't want to be in a historic district.
Is that if I were to say you're in the river district, I don't want to be in the river district. I might have a river, but I don't want to be called a river. It makes no sense. Whether you're in there or, I call you the river district or the historic district. It changes nothing with your property.
And again, that's not the point.
Yes, they're declaring you being in a district.
I've got a question.
I think we all want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you, Robin. Two more, and then we'll talk. Anita. Yes, ma'am.
Just a point, okay. When did you apply for this? When did you make application?
So this has been an initiative on the Sperryville Community Led best websites.
Okay, it's not Sperryville Community, it's the Sperryville Alliance, that little group, okay? Because if it had been the community, okay, when was the first public meeting? You had a public meeting when? When was it? This December?
You seem upset, so maybe afterwards we can have a discussion.
Well, but you don't get what, I get what this lady's
That's
saying.
exactly why.
Okay, I get what she's saying.
That's what we're
You
doing, we're
made,
having a
okay,
communication conversation right now. It's
Right.
happening right now,
Okay.
right now.
well
You
then,
understand now?
well then let me speak. Thank you. You made application in 2019, okay? You had your first public meeting 2022. What was going on all that time?
COVID.
Oh,
It doesn't matter, let's talk about that later.
Yes, it does matter, because like she said, you've taken away.
Make sure, because this is something to do with Aubrey. The 2019 preliminary form was filled out. They have to do that because there may be a, let me finish, just like.
I'm not saying anything.
But they have to go through that process to determine if it is even something that needs to go forward.
Right.
So that's where they have to contact me. That's
Who is
my
they?
job. Sorry?
Who is they?
So the
I thought
Alliance made the
we
application.
In Sperryville?
So the Alliance made the application. Let's have a conversation on this specific topic later. I'm happy to stay here as long as we can, but one more person, sure, had a comment, and then we do need to end.
It's simply that even if we are an expanded district, and there's dwellings within that district, that maybe you don't go and draw or take pictures of, isn't that kind of like, not everybody has to be included on the register of historic buildings, even though they're in a historic district? Does that make anybody feel more comfortable that maybe you won't be coming into someone's property if they don't want you to?
Yeah, they won't, because she wouldn't be going on anybody's property anyway. It's always on the public right of way. But because it's going back kind of to that donut hole thing. So if we allow people to say, I don't really want to be in it, and that might be fine for some edge properties, but then if somebody inside, then you just got little individual holes and, we get pick and choose, and it doesn't make sense as a district. Not every building in the historic district would be determined eligible individually. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. We can't, otherwise we'd be listing buildings left and right all over the place. But sometimes they just make sense as a district because it's about the community history as a whole, not one building or two buildings. And again, we get to pick and choose and whatever. It wouldn't make sense, and that's why that's in the enabling legislation, that's in the State Historic Preservation Act, the fed, the state. Everybody recognizes that. That's why, again, we can't just say, well, take a list, okay, we'll leave you out. Because we could have people, think back to the end of the original historic district for Sperryville. If we allow people, if maybe like 4 people within the Main Street, it would be little donut holes, and it just wouldn't make sense. Because again, it's the entire history, community, history of Sperryville, which is tied, ultimately, the natural restoration process is tied to the tangible resources that are left that tell that story. The buildings, the structures, the outhouses, anything within that district, it would make sense. Again, we're not all Monticello, we're not all, those are individual buildings, and some of those, high style architecture or whatever, that's a different thing. That's individual property. But as a community, we have to look at it holistically. Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing, because I'm getting a lot of questions as the supervisor for the district that this project is located in. And people say, well, Christine, if this is a project, why weren't you informed? And why aren't you part of the process? And I just wanted to make it clear to everybody that this was applied for by the Community Alliance, and that is the way that this grant was set up. It can be applied for by individuals, by nonprofit organizations, and by administrators of historic properties. It does not involve a county presence except in a way to supply information to the Department of Historic Resources when requested, which the county administrator had been doing before you all. But I was not involved. I was not drafted to write the grant. I was not contacted. I was not told to reach out to people about it. I was not asked to organize meetings, or I would have done all those things. Thanks so much.
Let me thank everybody for joining us. Sally, we're gonna close it, but we're happy to stay around and talk.
I appreciate y'all,
Carrie.
and Maral for being here. So, let me,
Aren't we all invited to be part of the alliance?
no, I don't wanna have that discussion here. I'm happy to sit down with anybody who'd like to have it, but I wanna be respectful of their time. It's been a long evening. I appreciate the discussion. I wanna remind anybody that we are actually setting up a working group who would like to be part of the process. There's an email and an address to send it to. We got about a month, 3 weeks. If you're interested in being part of the process, and giving us your input, ensuring that what Maral, I'm sure does an awesome job, is accurate, and providing some of the color that she can't get, please join us, and we'll do these meetings. I appreciate you coming tonight. Talk to you later.